The smell of old parchment and polished oak lingered in the air, mixing with the faint sweetness of dried herbs and the sharper bite of spiced liqueur. Smoke curled lazily from an ornate burner on the table, twisting into thin tendrils that caught the golden glow of the chandelier above. The chamber was heavy with silence, save for the occasional crackle of the fire and the slow, deliberate scratching of a quill. Two young women sat at the heart of the library, their heads bent over a parchment that sprawled with words, diagrams, and obscure symbols. Elira brushed a strand of hair from her eyes and traced her finger over a passage inked in faded crimson. Her expression was taut with concentration. "Here," she whispered, tapping the line again as if to anchor her thought. "This is the key. Look at the sigil, it repeats every 7 verses, like a rhythm." Across from her, Miren studied the parchment in silence. Her pale hands cradled a glass of amber liquid, though she had barely touched it since they had begun. Her eyes, thoughtful and cautious, lingered on the design, a spiral encased within twin crescents. "The archivists forbade this text for a reason," she murmured. "What if unlocking it does more than reveal words?" Elira's lips curved faintly, though the humor didn't quite reach her eyes. "Then it proves we were right to seek it out." The room around them, though warm and adorned with gilded shelves, seemed to lean closer with every word, as though the books themselves were listening. Busts of forgotten scholars lined the alcoves, and the massive stained-glass window, half obscured by winter fog outside, filtered light in pale blues and grays. This library was no mere room. It was the heart of Ashenwood, a sprawling manor said to contain the secrets of dynasties, faiths, and empires long since vanished. And yet, for all its grandeur, it was suffocating. A forbidden text. The parchment before them was no ordinary scrap from the archives. Bound within a larger tome, the Codex Aramontis, it was rumored to contain fragments of the lost language of stars. Scholars across the continent whispered of it, a tongue that could shape winds, shift rivers, even bend thought. But such claims had been banished to myth after the edict of the scribes declared all star languages heretical. That hadn't stopped Elira. Her entire life, she had been haunted by stories her grandmother once whispered, about voices in the sky that spoke before storms, about constellations rearranging themselves to spell out names. Since childhood, she felt the pull of something greater, as though the stars were waiting for her to read them. And when she had stumbled upon the Codex, hidden in the vaults of Ashenwood, concealed behind rows of dusty genealogies, it had felt like fate itself had opened its hand. Miren had been harder to convince. The cautious one, the doubter. Yet here she was, across the table, unable to look away from the spiral sigil. The first unveiling. Elira set aside her quill and reached for the small bronze stylus at her side. She dipped it into the inkpot, black as midnight, and carefully began tracing the spiral sigil anew. Her movements were deliberate, reverent, as though redrawing the pattern gave it breath. As the ink spread across the parchment, the air seemed to shift. The curls of smoke from the burner straightened, drawn toward the spiral. A faint vibration hummed beneath the wood of the table. Miren gasped softly and set down her glass. "Elira, stop. The wards." But Elira didn't. Her eyes shone with determination, though her hand trembled slightly as she completed the final crescent. The spiral glowed faintly, silver-white, like moonlight caught on water. A whisper unfurled through the chamber. Not a voice, not exactly, but a resonance, like wind brushing through hollow stone. The chandelier flickered, books shivered on their shelves, and the ancient busts seemed to tilt just a fraction toward the table. Elira's breath caught in her throat. The resonance wasn't frightening. It was familiar. "Do you hear it?" she whispered, almost pleading. Miren pressed a hand against her chest, her heartbeat drumming hard. The whisper was inside her bones, threading through her veins. "Yes," she admitted. Her voice was barely audible. "But it feels wrong. Like something ancient has been waiting for us to call its name." Elira's eyes never left the spiral. "Or like something ancient has been waiting to remind us who we are." A memory awakens. The whisper deepened, syllables forming in the air, alien and yet strangely intelligible. Neither woman had learned the tongue, yet they understood. To touch the stars, you must first unchain the self. Miren's stomach twisted. She pushed back from the table, nearly knocking over her chair. "No. This isn't knowledge, it's a summons." We've opened a door that was meant to stay closed. Elira rose too, but her face was alight with something fierce. Don't you see? The archivists feared this because it's true. They wanted silence, not understanding. But this is proof. The sigil pulsed once, and as it did, memories that weren't theirs surged through their minds. A city of glass towers beneath a sky of spiraling constellations. A council robed in silver, speaking in chords rather than words. A war fought not with blades but with sentences, each utterance a weapon that could reshape flesh and flame. Elira staggered, clutching the edge of the table as visions flickered behind her eyes. "I've seen this before," she whispered. "In dreams. Always in dreams." Miren shook her head, her breath ragged. "Then those weren't dreams. They were warnings." Between loyalty and fear. For a long moment, the two women simply stared at one another, the parchment glowing faintly between them. The library felt alive now, every book a watching eye, every shadow a held breath. "Elira," Miren said, her voice trembling but steadying with each word. "We have to put it back. Seal it. If we leave now, maybe the wards will contain what we've stirred." But Elira's jaw tightened. "You want to turn away? After everything we've sought? After years of searching, questioning, wondering?" She stepped closer, her voice low and urgent. "You felt it too. That language, it was ours once. We're meant to reclaim it." Miren's eyes softened, torn between reason and the bond that had bound them together since childhood. She remembered Elira's countless nights of restless wandering, her obsession with the stars. She remembered the pain in her friend's eyes every time the world dismissed her as a dreamer. And yet, Miren also remembered the tales of kingdoms undone by forbidden knowledge, the charred ruins left when men sought to wield what they did not understand. "Meant to reclaim it?" she asked quietly. "Or meant to be destroyed by it?" The choice. The parchment pulsed again, brighter now, as though impatient for their decision. The whisper returned, clearer than before. "One will guard. One will guide. Choose." The word struck through both of them like a blade. Miren's breath hitched. She didn't know if it was prophecy or manipulation, but the meaning was undeniable. One of them would have to take up the language. One would resist it. Balance, or ruin, depended on the choice. Elira reached across the table, her hand hovering near Miren's. "Then choose with me," she whispered. "Not against me." Miren's gaze flicked to the parchment, then back to her friend. She saw the fire in Elira's eyes, the yearning that had defined her whole life. And she knew, Elira would never let go, not now. Tears stung her eyes as she whispered, "Then I'll guard." Elira's fingers closed around hers, relief flooding her features. "And I'll guide." The spiral blazed once, so bright it filled the chamber, and then the parchment fell still. The smoke dissipated, the whispers quieted. The library returned to silence. But something had changed. The choice had been made. The bond sealed. 4 hours after, neither spoke. They sat in the heavy hush of the library, sipping the amber liquid that had long since lost its warmth. Elira could still feel the resonance thrumming in her chest, like a second heartbeat. Words hovered at the edges of her mind, syllables she did not yet know how to speak but already understood. Miren, meanwhile, felt the opposite, a strange stillness, as if the whisper had retreated into her but was now bound, restrained by some unseen tether. Guard and guide, she thought. She didn't know what it meant, not fully. But she understood this much. She would be the anchor that kept Elira from drifting too far into the stars. Outside, the winter fog pressed against the stained glass, muting the light into shadows of blue and gold. Somewhere in the manor, a clock told midnight. And in the heart of Ashenwood, 2 young women sat across from one another, bound now not only by friendship but by a pact with something older than kingdoms. Neither knew whether the path ahead led to salvation or ruin. But together, they had chosen to walk it.
If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more epic adventures.